We have a police brutality problem in 2020. I'm Bernie Bro. And I want to share this commentary with you all. As I said, we have a police brutality problem in 2020. Just recently, an African American by the name of George Floyd was murdered by a police officer in Minneapolis, Minnesota. He was unarmed, and for what I could tell, he wasn't really resisting arrest at all. And the knee was on the neck of George Floyd, and he told the officer, I can't breathe. I can't breathe. I can't breathe. And he died. I mean, this is not just an isolated incident. This sort of thing happens. And it's pretty much headlines all to the point where you're almost immune to it, which you shouldn't be. You know, unarmed black man shot brutally by a cop or several police officers. Um, we have a police brutality problem. And prior to the age of the internet, and cell phones, and all the technology, oh, I would say, all the way up to maybe the early '90s, whenever police brutality took place against African Americans, it was dismissed. Pretty much, everybody just took the words of the white police officer, and you know, black people's lives just didn't seem to be of any importance in the criminal justice system. When you take, for instance, when an extreme action like a white nationalist, if he goes and murder black people, he's not put to the death row. He's not ever put on death row. But if heavens forbid, if a black person murdered a white person, everybody start calling for the death penalty. Um, that's basically one of the reasons why I passionately oppose capital punishment. But as I said, we have a police brutality problem. Even when it's caught on camera, like Rodney King in 1991, um, you have people that were sitting there trying to defend the police officers. And the and when it went to the court case in 1992, and the cops got off, I totally understand why the rioting took place. I understand. I don't condone it, but I understand. Um, and it, it wasn't the last time it happened. It keeps happening here, every so often, several times a year. You're hearing about police brutality. Now, I want to make it understood that I'm not sitting there bashing cops. I'm not sitting there. I think that the majority of the police try to do what they're supposed to do, and that is to keep the peace. I have no problem with that, and I have no problem with law enforcement actually going after real bad guys. But in this case, the real bad guys are the ones controlling these corporations, and you're screwing people over right now, as was with the case with the COVID crisis, where the treasury got looted, and the super wealthy became wealthier as a result, while everybody else got diddly shit. But that's on another topic there. But we have a racist criminal justice system that goes out of its way to incarcerate, and like for example with the crime bill that took place in the 1994, that emphasized on mandatory minimums, and this was done under a supposedly progressive presidency of Bill Clinton, and a Democratic House and a Democratic Senate, But it was at a time when Democrats wanted to prove that they were tough on crime, and so they tried to just about outdo the Republicans. And but to not look fully reactionary, they'll go and make it a little bit politically correct to make it palatable among the liberal establishment. But still, uh, the crime bill that took place in 1994 is just as ugly as the criminal justice system under Ronald Reagan and George Herbert Walker Bush. As far as I'm concerned, there's no difference. But as I said, this is a repeated pattern that takes place, and what happens? I mean, we have we have people who are scared of Black Lives Matter. Now, I don't 100% agree with every single aspect of BLM, but I understand why they exist, and I do support them. Um, and we need to address this problem of racism in the criminal justice system. Um, One of the things we can do is rigorous training in law enforcement not to not to do these things. Um, Body cams. I've heard about, been hearing for many years about body cams, which I'm divided on that question because as a civil libertarian, I think there's some privacy issues or whatever. But then again, they're public servants, and but at the same time, I'm thinking, well, we're way too surveillance as a society. So I'm kind of torn on the body cams, but you have certain mayors in the country that will tell people to turn off their cameras or what have you, or find ways around it. So anyhow, they need to be trained, and I mean, they really do need to be trained. Um, our government, our Pentagon should stop giving military equipment to law enforcement, like they're going to be fighting in Syria or something, or Iraq. There's no reason for cops to be with military weapons. I'm okay with them having bulletproof vests, things like that, so they wouldn't. I don't want cops harmed any more than the civilians out there in the population. But at the same time, they shouldn't be armed to the teeth like they're a branch of the military. And I'm getting worried about that. And the militarization of local law enforcement is is very problematic these days. Um, and I think I'd like to see that put to a stop. Um, Again, I bring this up, and I'm surprised that Black Lives Matter and their allies don't bring this up enough. But the death penalty disproportionately discriminates against African Americans and other people of color. It also discriminates against those without money, and that applies to all, including whites, because when they don't have any money, their privilege is gone. Um, we need to go and address these problems, and one of the ways to solve actual crime problems all across the board is to provide people a living wage job. We need to stop the drug wars, which again goes after people of color, while white wealthy people get away with the same shit that minority disenfranchised communities, whether they're doing it or not, you know, that needs to be addressed too. I would say legalizing marijuana and seriously decriminalizing the other drugs, because that will be the only way we can go and destroy organized crime put them out of business tomorrow. You would not. You could walk in so-called trouble neighborhoods without worrying about getting shot at or assaulted or all the problems that comes with the drug culture because there is a black market that made it underground and that needs to be addressed. So and overall, if we could just find a way to correct some of these problems, then we would not have things like the rioting that's taken place in the last day or so. Um, and that's just my take on this right now. And I would like to see an end to this police brutality nonsense. Nonsense, bullshit's what it is. I'm Bernie Bro. If you like what you heard, feel free to say thumbs up, subscribe, tell everybody about this channel, and remember, we need to put it in to racism in our criminal justice system. I'm out. Peace.